Now the other factor that comes into this that I have to kind of hedge a little bit on is this. We need to stay diligent about the information that we're hearing, and one of the purposes of this meeting is to quell rumors and to get actual information, because we need to know the facts so that we can make and help inform the public, so that you guys and you ladies can make decisions that's best interest of your families. And that's what we're going to try and do with the Colonel. One of the things that we have to be prepared for, because things do change. There could be a change in the system. There could be some other factor, some new number, some more up-to-date forecast that would change our strategy. And we're prepared if that were to happen. Now, my hope is that maybe they're going to come to say, you know what, it's not going to be as bad as we thought. That would make us all happy and put us all at ease. But they could say, hey, the river's going to get to an even higher level. And if that happens, we're going to get as much information as we can out to you so that we can all make a good decision. The map that I've just put up here is to address one issue that we've heard many times. What area of town is more vulnerable or less vulnerable and so forth? This is a publicly available document. This came off of a State of Louisiana website. What it shows is, through a color coding, the elevations of the city. The yellows are the lowest, the orange are the lowest areas. This is basically, is it under 2 feet? I can't quite read it, but I think it's under 2 feet, 0 to -2, I guess, basically. And then this one is 0 to +2, and then going up from there. So as you can see, there's a lot of low-lying area. This is really not, our plans are really not about protecting one subdivision or another subdivision, because quite honestly, if water were to get into that levee system, break through that levee system, all of the zeros, all of the 2s, all of the 4s, and if we're talking about a 6-foot lake, up to the 6-foot elevation is going to be inundated. And as you can see, that doesn't just mean Auburn or just mean this Grisco property or the Victor II area, but it means all of Elliott subdivision as well, all of those areas. And I would vision to say, if the lake, if we had a breach in one of these levees, you're basically looking at the highway as being the high point, and then perhaps on the other side of the highway being protected. The natural ridge, the highest areas, and those that are in the 6 to 8 and above 8-foot range, are the natural ridge that was developed as a result of being on a river. Now, that's what rivers did before we had levees. They overflowed, they dropped their sediment, and this is the higher area. The lower areas are the areas that fall away from there. So, and by the way, this map is posted on the city's website under the flood advisory place, so you can look at it. Now, you can't tell from this map your specific house elevation. It would not necessarily reflect your yard. Your yard could be 2 foot higher than your neighbor, but the general area is at, say, 2 foot, that type of thing. There is another website that purports to do that, but this is for the purpose of this map we've been using, you know, for our planning, because we have looked at, okay, if we had a breach, are there some things we can do inside the city, and tried to incorporate those plans in some of our efforts. But hopefully this addresses the issue about, well, if I live in this area, should I do something or should I not do something? This is what the LIDAR data indicates, and we wanted to make sure that you had that. Our next slide. Just a little overview. This is a massive body of water, of course, and if you envision that body of water at 6 feet, you can see it poses some risk to us. But these levees were built specifically to keep that lake from getting in there. This structure down here in Bayou Chene is specifically built to keep this river water from working its way back around and getting back into this lake. And you know, as you know, our neighbors to our north and to our east are equally vulnerable from that same flow. And with this structure across here, what we're hoping for is it keeps that lake level down. And I've told Mr. Hidalgo and the rest of the folks at the Levee District, if you can drop that level by 1 foot, I can sleep very well at night. Our levees are going to be just fine. But if it does reach 6, I think we've put in adequate protection to keep it there. If it goes higher than that, then we'll have to continue to have some discussions. One other point I want to make on these predictions, one of the reasons why we have to build in cushion in that. Those elevations are based on a general set of assumptions. We can't have extreme events. We can't have extremely high tides. We can't have strong southerly winds, or we can't have extreme rainfall events that would add to the level of water. But we think we've raised these levees enough to accommodate those types of things. If we can expect 5 foot of water and we've got a 9-foot backwater protection, then we're in pretty good shape. Next slide. And these were the forecast as presented. And of course, that's the point, and that's the number we've been planning for. The crest at the Morganza Spillway, with the Morganza Spillway open, between 12 and 13 feet. The specific one the National Weather Service gave me was 12.5 feet. We took that number, working with the Corps of Engineers. We asked them to calculate what the lake level would be, and that's how we've developed our plans, and that's the plans we've been pursuing. That's the information I wanted to convey to you tonight. I will, of course, answer questions, but I'd like to next call on Colonel Fleming and ask him to give us an update from the Colonel's perspective. Colonel? Thank you.
Yeah, I may need that. Yeah. Good evening. As Mayor Mott said, my name is Ed Fleming. I'm a colonel in the Army, and I'm the district commander for the New Orleans District Army Corps of Engineers. Our footprint goes from all the way in the east to the Mississippi boundary, all the way in the west to the boundary with Texas, all the way up to the Angola prison, and kind of across the state from there. And so I've been, matter of fact, I was up over Angola and the Morganza structure yesterday. I was in Butte La Rose the night before, and I'm here tonight. And I'm happy to be here. I know this is not my first time in Morgan City. I know where Morgan City is. I know where St. Mary Parish is. I've been here a bunch of times, and I love it down here. So let me tell you a couple things that I do know. First of all, this is a historic event. There is absolutely no doubt about it. We are seeing crests come down the river as you look all the way up to Cairo, Illinois, all the way down on the Mississippi River and Atchafalaya River. The Mississippi River crested in Cairo 3 feet above the previous record, which was the flood of 1927. And let's see, in Vicksburg, we're expecting the crest to be 1 foot above the previous record, which again was the flood of 1927. So you're going to see historic levels of water, no matter whether you measure them in foot or whether you measure them in flow. There's historic levels of water in the system. You know, there's a lot of discussion about operating the Morganza floodway and whether we will or whether we won't, and how come we're going to do this and you're doing this to save New Orleans or Baton Rouge and you're going to flood us at the cost of somebody else. That is absolutely not the case. That is absolutely not the case, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. Number one, whether we operate the Morganza structure or not, the way that's built, if you've never been up there, it's below LA1, Route 1, up in Morganza, okay? The gate comes up to about an elevation of 60 feet, okay? The highway bridge goes above it. The bottom of the highway bridge is at about 63 feet. So what do you think happens between 60 and 63? There's nothing but air. Okay? So if we get to 61 feet, we've now got 1 foot of water coming over the top of that gate. So that water's coming over the gate. And it's not a good thing to have an uncontrolled flow of water. I would rather be able to control that flow of that water so I know how much is coming, when it's coming, and I can tell you when it's going to be there. So whether we operate that Morganza floodway or not, the water's going to come. We know that. Secondly, it's not an either or, as I said earlier. We're not flooding some to sacrifice others, because number one, that water's coming anyway. Number two, we're going to flood fight right here. We're going to flood fight right here. As Mayor Mott said, this is our battle line. I've moved down to one of my mobile command posts. We have like a big RV, It's got satellite telephones, it's got internet, it's got VTC capability, we got CNN and Weather Channel. And I'll introduce Major Luis Gonzalez, Major G. I've sent Major G down here for a couple of weeks from New Orleans, and he's left his family back there, and he's going to be down here as long as it needs to be. He's running the operation out of my mobile command post. See these folks here in the white shirts? This is my team here on the ground. And there may only be a half dozen of them, but there's 1,500 folks back in New Orleans that they can reach back and touch when they need some information, or when they need some sandbags, or some HESCO, or some sheet pile, or some pumps, or just some technical knowledge and information so we can say, put this over here. No, 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 put it over here. That's a better idea. Okay. So we're going to flood flight this thing right next door to you, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm. How's she doing up there? It's kind of like being in church, you know? Okay, already so far, we've already issued out 40,000 sandbags and 10,000 feet of HESCO, and we got more coming. You guys know we got the lock over there at Bayou Buff. That's going to be where we're keeping our supplies. And so this is not a free-for-all, okay? The way this works, if the city needs something and they don't have it, they ask the parish. If the parish can't handle it, they ask the state. If the state can't handle it, they ask the Corps, and we'll provide them. That's kind of how that goes. And we've got supplies that we're pre-positioning down at the Bayou Buff lock. Let me go to, if we could, that inundation map. Okay, this is our product. We generated this back in New Orleans in the district, and this is as a result of our best guess, our best estimate on what we think is going to happen no matter whether we operate this or not. Now this particular scenario assumes that we would operate the Morganza floodway at 50% capacity, okay, at 50% capacity, so halfway. As the mayor said, all that purple down there is 0 to 5 feet, okay? Now, there's two things that are important to remember about this. Number one, that does not take into account elevation, okay? So, if your property, if your front door has base flood elevation of 5 feet, you're probably going to be okay, okay? You're probably going to be okay. So we don't take into account elevation with this map. The second thing is we have not taken into account any local levees. Okay, so this doesn't necessarily account or really apply in Morgan City, but as you get out in other locations, there are lots of potato ridges and lots of local levees. We don't have survey data on that. We don't know how well they've been maintained. We don't know if they might have some gaps or some holes in them. So we just assume the worst and assume they weren't even there. That's why you just see that wide swath of purple. Okay, so we didn't account for any local levees in that area.